The sky was burning. Kale flew fast through the smoke, his metal wings slicing through the air. Explosions echoed behind him as enemy ships fired at the Academy forces. It was chaos. Soldiers screamed, lasers roared, and buildings collapsed. Kale's orders were clear. Protect the command post. Do not interfere with enemy wounded. But then he saw her. Lying near a broken wall, half covered in rubble, was an alien girl. Her silver skin was stained with blood. Her white hair flowed like fireless light, glowing even under ash. She was not moving, but her eyes, those glowing blue eyes, were still open. Still alive, Kale stopped in the air. His heart beat harder. Than ever, she was the enemy. The rules said to leave her. She would die within minutes. He should have flown away, but something inside him didn't let him. He landed near her, ignoring the warnings buzzing in his helmet. The alien girl coughed weakly, trying to sit up, but failing. Her body was shaking. A plasma burn had hit her chest armor. Kale dropped to one knee. "Can you hear me?" The girl blinked slowly. "Help me." He hesitated. She wasn't supposed to speak his language, but she had. That changed everything. Behind him, another explosion lit up the sky. A voice crackled in his comm. "Unit 7, report. Why are you off path? Get back to the post immediately." Kale didn't answer. He pressed a button on his chest plate. His visor slid open. He looked at her with his real eyes, not through the scanner. She looked young, maybe his age. Her hands trembled as she reached toward him. Not to fight, not to attack, just to hold on. He couldn't leave her. With a deep breath, Kale wrapped his arms around the alien girl and lifted her gently. She was lighter than he expected. Her breathing was shallow. The armor around her waist had melted. He activated his wing boosters. "Kale." The voice shouted again in his helmet. "You are breaking direct orders. That is an enemy. Leave her and return now." He ignored it as he flew away with her in his arms. Enemy drones spotted him. Red lasers zipped past him, lighting up the clouds. One grazed his shoulder, burning through his armor. But he kept going. Below, soldiers pointed. Some even tried to shoot him down. But Kale flew higher. He reached the old training cliffs outside the battlefield, where the Academy's sensors didn't reach. There in the hollow of a ruined tower, he landed. He laid her down on a stone floor. She was unconscious now. Her breathing slow. Kale removed his gauntlet and touched her face. Her skin was warm. He pulled out a small med pack and began treating her wounds. She didn't move, but he could see color returning to her cheeks. He sighed in relief, but he knew what he had just done. Saving her was forbidden. Breaking command orders was punishable by exile, sometimes death. The Academy didn't forgive. Betrayal. And to them, helping the enemy was the worst betrayal of all. But Kale didn't feel regret. Looking at her peaceful face, he whispered, "I don't know who you are, but I couldn't let you die." 2 hours later, the sky was quiet. The battle had moved far away. Kale stood at the cliff's edge, watching ships disappear in the clouds. He knew they were looking for him, and he knew what they would do when they found him. But behind him, the alien girl stirred. She opened her eyes slowly, looked around, then looked at him. "You saved me," she said softly. Kale nodded. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice weak. "Why?" He didn't have a real answer. Because no one else would. She blinked again. Her eyes shimmered with something more than just light, something like emotion. "My name is Lyra," she said. Kale sat beside her. "I'm Kale." They looked at each other for a long moment. No words, just silence and burning skies in the distance. But something had changed. Two enemies. One moment. One forbidden choice. and nothing would ever be the same again. The gates of the Skyforge Academy slammed shut behind him. Kale walked alone across the stone courtyard, his metal boots echoing with each step. Above him, banners of the Academy whipped. In the wind, banners he once saluted, once believed in, but now they no longer represented honor. They were the faces of judgment. His wings were bound, not broken, not cut yet, but sealed with black restraints, a symbol of betrayal. Soldiers in silver uniforms watched from the shadows, whispering, not daring to speak aloud. Everyone knew Kale had saved an alien. A trial had already begun behind the walls at a fair. Trial. A decision dressed as justice. The Grand Inquisitor, General Halrose, stood tall in the center of the command chamber. His voice was cold as steel. You disobeyed direct orders. You aided the enemy. Do you deny this? Kale stood straight, fists clenched at his sides. I do not deny it, sir. Murmurs spread through the room like wildfire. General Halrose narrowed his eyes. You understand the meaning of your actions. I do, Kale said, and I would do it again. Gasps. Rage, even a few faces turned pale. No one had ever stood against the high command like this. Not openly, Hal Ross stepped closer. You shame this academy. You disgrace your people. And for what? A creature that would have slit your throat had she been stronger. Kale didn't flinch. She didn't. She was hurt. She was scared. She was the enemy. Kale's voice rose now, filled with fire. Then maybe we're wrong about who the enemy really is. Silence. Not even a breath was heard in the room. Kale had crossed a line, and everyone knew it. Hours later, Kale stood in the Hall of Wings. This was where every graduate received their flight armor, their title, and their wings. It was supposed to be sacred. Now it was his place of punishment. The Grand Inquisitor returned with a small black box. Without emotion, he pulled a silver pin from Kale's chest, his pilot's badge, and dropped it into the box. Next, the restraints on Kale's wings snapped open. 2 guards stepped forward with glowing blades. Kale knew what came next. But before they struck, Halrose raised a hand. Not this time, he said. Let him keep his wings. Let the world see what happens when loyalty dies. Kale stared straight ahead, silent. Then came the final words. You are stripped of rank, of honor, of name. You are no longer one of us. You are cast out. The gates opened again. Kale walked into the cold winds of the outer cliffs with nothing but his armor and the fire in his chest. His wings flared out not as a soldier's gift now, but as a curse. He didn't know where he would go. He only knew who he would return to, far from the academy. Hidden in the stone ruins of an old observatory, Lyra lay curled in a makeshift seed bed. Her wounds had closed, thanks to Kale's stolen medpacks, but her body was still weak. She didn't sleep much. She feared every sound. She thought Kale wouldn't come back until the wind changed, and she felt him nearby. She looked up, and there he was, standing in the broken doorway, shadowed by sunset. Wings spread behind him like fading fire. Lyra sat up. You came back. Kale nodded slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were stormy. I had to. She looked at the damage on his armor, the missing insignia, the absence of light in his wings. What did they do to you? She whispered. They took everything, he said simply. But they couldn't take why I did it. Lyra's throat tightened. You gave up your whole life for me. Kale stepped closer and crouched down beside her. I didn't do it for medals or rules or titles. I did it because you didn't deserve to die. A tear slid down her cheek. Kale hesitated for a moment, then gently wiped it away. You're not alone now, he said. And neither am I. The alien girl reached for his hand, and their fingers touched light against light. Warmth meeting warmth. Outside, the winds howled over the cliffs. Inside, two exiles shared silence, and something neither of them fully understood yet. But it was growing. The stars weren't safe anymore. Kale and Lyra moved through the abandoned tunnels under the cliffs. The old mining paths were cold, damp, and full of echoes. Every step sounded like a warning. Every shadow felt like an ambush. Neither the humans nor the aliens wanted them alive now. Kale walked ahead, his wings folded tight, his armor scratched and dull. He gripped a stolen pulse rifle just in case. Behind him, Lyra followed quietly. She wore Kale's old cloak, her silver skin hidden. Beneath layers of dust and cloth, she didn't complain. She never did, but Kale could feel her fear. He felt it too. They had stayed too long in one place. The Academy had sent drones. Lyra's own people had sent trackers. They weren't running from war anymore, they were running from everyone. 3 days earlier, a message had gone out. Wanted, Kale Thorne. Former Skyforge soldier. Branded traitor. Dangerous. Traveling with alien fugitive. Reward doubled if captured alive. Lyra's bounty came next. Her name was listed as Lyra Zelenary, daughter of the enemy scientist council. She wasn't just a soldier's mistake. She was a secret they couldn't afford to let live. Now they both had targets on their backs. Back in the tunnels, Kale stopped suddenly. He raised his fist to signal. Lyra froze behind him. A sharp, humming sound cut through the air. Faint, but getting closer. Drones. Kale grabbed her hand and pulled her into a crack in the wall. They pressed close together as 3 searchlights passed just inches from their faces. Metal wings buzzed overhead. The sound faded slowly into the distance. Lyra whispered, "That's the 3rd patrol today." Kale nodded. "They're getting closer. We can't keep running forever." He looked at her. "I'm not running," he said. "I'm leading them away from something they fear." Lyra frowned. "Me?" Kale didn't answer. But his eyes said everything. Later, they found shelter in the ruins of an old research station. Broken computers, shattered glass, and vines covered the walls. It had been untouched for years. Kale blocked the doors with steel and made a fire from wiring and dry panels. Lyra sat close to the flame, shivering. She looked up at him. "Why? Do they want me dead?" Kale hesitated, then sat beside her. "Because you're proof." "Of what?" "That they're wrong." Lyra didn't understand at first. Kale continued, voice low. "You're not a monster. You're not a killer. You're alive. Feeling just like me. They don't want others to see that." Lyra was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that chilled him. "My people told me humans had no hearts, that your kind only felt." Victory. Kale looked into her glowing eyes. "And what do you believe now?" She touched her chest. "I feel your heart every time you save me." Kale felt something stir deep inside him. Not duty, not guilt. Something warmer. But before he could speak, the ground shook. Boom, a blast hit the upper structure. Metal crashed down. Dust filled the room. Kale grabbed Lyra and rolled behind an old generator. The roof caved in above where they had just sat. From the smoke, a voice shouted, "Kale Thorne, you are surrounded. Surrender now." Kale's eyes widened. He recognized that voice. It was Commander Varn, his former teacher. Lyra clutched his arm. "What do we do?" Kale's mind raced. If they caught them, Lyra would be executed. He would be tortured. There was only one choice. We fight. Next moments were fire and noise. Kale blasted through the walls with his wings, flying into the air and drawing fire toward himself. Lyra ran through the back corridor. Hiding the glowing map disk Kale had found earlier held her people's location. A hidden truth the galaxy must never see. Lasers tore through the sky. Kale fought like a wild storm. Dodging, diving, striking. Varn shouted, "This is not you, Kale. You were one of us." Kale growled, "You were never for us." Hours later, in the silence of the broken forest beyond the cliffs, Kale limped through trees, blood on his face. Holding Lyra close again, they had escaped barely, but now Kale understood something deeper. The galaxy didn't just want them dead. It wanted to silence their story, and as long as they breathed, that story would survive. The rain came without warning. Cold drops fell from a dark sky as Kale and Lyra hid inside the hollow trunk of a fallen sky tree. Their clothes were soaked. Kale's pulse rifle was nearly out of charge. Lyra's breathing was heavy, her hands shaking. She was getting worse. Her body trembled with fever. Her skin, once smooth and silver, now had dark veins crawling beneath the surface. Kale noticed them while wrapping her in his cloak. "Lyra, this isn't just an infection." She nodded weakly. "It's the change. It's starting." Kale frowned. "The what?" She looked into his eyes, and for the first time since they met, he saw fear not from battle, but from something deeper. "In my species," she whispered, "when we're close to death, our body reveals what it's hiding." Kale sat beside her, confused. "What are you hiding?" Lyra turned her face away. "My father was a scientist, a traitor to my people. He changed my blood, mixed it with something ancient." Kale's heart pounded. "Your part, something else." Lyra nodded. "Half of me isn't from any known species. They called it a myth, but it's real. My blood can adapt, heal, but it also burns through me if I'm too weak." Kale stared at her hands. The dark veins glowed faintly now, like rivers of light. "Why would he do that to you?" "He believed I would survive the war, that I'd be hope." She paused, her voice cracking. "But now I'm just a dying mistake." Kale couldn't accept that. He searched his bag. He had a few stim packs left, standard human tech. Not designed for her biology, but maybe, just maybe, this might hurt, he said. Lyra gave a small smile. "Everything already hurts." He injected the fluid into her shoulder. She screamed as her body arched. The veins flared bright blue. Her eyes rolled back. Kale held her tightly, whispering, "Stay with me. Don't go. Not like this." Minutes passed, then silence, then breath. She opened her eyes slowly. The glow faded. The veins softened. She was alive. Kale's hands trembled. "It worked." Lyra blinked. "It didn't kill me. So maybe that's good." They both laughed, exhausted. But Kale wasn't smiling inside, because now he understood why everyone was chasing her that night. Kale sat alone outside the tree trunk, watching the stars move through the clouds. He tapped into the old data disk. He stole from the battlefield. He hadn't dared look before. But now he had to know. The screen showed files, reports, scans, and then a secret subject, XN47. Hybrid, adaptive, self-regenerating. Potential cure carrier. If captured, destroy immediately to prevent diplomatic crisis. Kale's chest went cold. They didn't just want Lyra dead to stop her. They feared her blood could end the war by healing both sides. If that got out, every lie told by the High Command would collapse. He stared at the sleeping girl. Inside the trunk. She wasn't a mistake. She was the cure. Morning came with the sound of ships overhead. Kale woke Lyra quickly. "We have to move. They've found us." Lyra stood shakily. "Where?" Kale pointed toward the eastern ridge. "There's an old research outpost if we get there. I can send a signal." "To who?" "To anyone who still believes in truth." They ran. The forest was thick. Their feet splashed through mud and puddles, but they didn't stop. Not even when the drones appeared in the sky again. Kale blasted one with his last shot. The rest scattered. They reached the old outpost, trusted, broken, but still standing. Inside, Kale powered up a transmitter. Static buzzed, then a green light blinked. He began to speak. "This is Kale Thorne, former Skyforge soldier. I'm sending this to any free system, any rogue ship, any listeners still out there. I'm with a girl named Lyra. She carries something inside her that could save millions. And they want her dead for it." He paused. "Don't believe the lies. Help us, please." He hit send, then looked at Lyra. Her eyes were wet with tears. "You didn't have to do that." Kale smiled. "Yes, I did. Because you're not just my reason to fight anymore. You're my reason to believe." Far away, someone heard the message, and everything began to change. The wind howled across the cliffs, carrying with it the scent of ozone and danger. Kale stood at the edge, his wings stretched out, feeling the world below him spin faster than his thoughts. Somewhere in the valley below, enemies searched for them. Somewhere in the sky above, satellites watched like cold, silent gods. But for a moment, there was peace behind him. Lyra sat quietly on a rock, legs crossed, her glowing hands cupped around a small blue flower growing between the stones. She looked healthier now, stronger. Her skin shimmered softly again. The dark veins had faded, and her breath came steady. She had survived the change, but something else had changed too. Something neither of them could explain in words. Kale turned and walked over. "That flower, it only grows on dead stone." Lyra smiled gently, "and yet it blooms." They both understood the meaning without saying it. Later that night, as the fire crackled between them, Lyra watched Kale carefully. He was polishing his damaged armor, piece by piece, but his hands moved slower than usual. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm thinking," he replied. "About what?" He looked up. His eyes were tired, but honest. "About what happens next." She tilted her head. "Do you regret saving me?" Kale dropped the armor piece gently on the ground. "Never. Not even for a second." Lyra leaned forward. "Then what is it?" He paused, then said, "It's strange. I was trained to follow rules, orders, protocol. But ever since I broke them, I've never felt more human." Lyra's voice softened. "You're more than just human now." Kale looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She reached out and placed her hand on his chest plate, right over his heart. "You've seen me broken. You've seen me change. But you never ran. You held me, protected me, fought for me. In my culture, that's not just survival." Kale didn't move. He couldn't even blink. Lyra whispered, "That's bonding." The fire cracked louder as silence fell between them. Kale finally spoke. "And what does bonding mean?" Lyra's cheeks darkened to a rosy purple. "It means we're connected now, not by blood, not by species, but by choice." He sat back slowly. "And what if I choose the same?" Lyra smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. "Then the bond is complete." The next morning, Kale woke to the sound of humming. Lyra was outside the cave, standing barefoot on the soft grass, her arms lifted toward the sun. Light danced across her skin. Kale watched silently. Something about her now felt different. Not just stronger, brighter, like she was becoming what her father hoped for, a new kind of being. When she noticed him, She walked over and sat beside him. I had a dream, she said. About what? About us. Flying together. No war, no fear. Just sky. Cale looked up. Sounds impossible, but we've already done the impossible, she said. He thought for a moment, then whispered. Maybe we're the ones meant to change everything. Suddenly, a sound echoed in the distance, metallic footsteps, heavy boots. They froze. Cale stood quickly, weapon drawn. Lyra tensed, her hand glowing faintly. From behind the trees, a group of figures stepped out, not soldiers, not assassins, rogues, rebels, humans. And aliens, side by side. One stepped forward, a woman with scars across her jaw. We received your signal. Cale lowered his weapon slowly. You came. We've been waiting for something real to believe in, she said. Her eyes turned to Lyra, and I think it's her. Later, in the campfire glow of their new alleys, Cale sat beside Lyra again. She leaned her head on his shoulder. The stars above them shimmered like they were watching something sacred. Cale whispered, Are you scared? She replied, Not anymore, because I'm not alone. He smiled, holding her hand tightly in a galaxy filled with war. Betrayal and fear. Two beings from different worlds had made a choice that no law could break. They had bonded, and together they would be the light in a darkness that had lasted far too long. The rebel ship broke through the clouds like thunder. Cale stood at the edge of the hangar ramp. His wings spread wide once more, not as a soldier of the Academy, but as a warrior of his own will. The symbol on his chest was no longer the old crest. It had been scorched off and replaced with something simple, a hand and a star, a symbol of unity. Lyra stood beside him, dressed in deep gray armor lined with soft blue lights. Her hair shimmered down her back like silver silk. Her presence was quiet but strong. No longer just a survivor, she was a leader now. They had returned to the skies they once ran from. But this time, they were not alone. Behind them stood a crew of defectors, humans. Aliens, hybrids brought together by Cale's message and Lyra's blood. The outcast had become the spark, and now they were flying straight into the heart of the enemy, the Skyforge Academy. As the ship neared the towering fortress, Cale looked out the window. He saw the place where he was trained, where he was judged, where he was broken, but he didn't feel fear anymore. He felt purpose. Inside the command hall of the Academy, alarms rang. General Halrose stood tall, his face hard and unreadable. They returned with rebels, he growled. Then we welcome them with fire. A young officer stepped forward, shaking. Sir, one of the intruders. It's Thorn? Halrose froze. Impossible. He should be dead. The officer showed a live scan. He's not only alive, he's leading them. Halrose stared at the screen, then turned slowly. Ready, all defenses. K, and if you see him, don't shoot to kill. I want him to see what happens to traitors who come home. The ship landed. Hard Cale stepped out first, wings open like blades, eyes locked on the entrance ahead. The courtyard was empty, but he could feel the cameras watching. Guns aimed. Then the doors opened, and out came soldiers. Dozens of them, all in perfect formation. Cale raised his voice. You trained me to protect what was right. You told me to never turn from pain. So here I am. Not running, not hiding. No response. Until General Halrose appeared at the top of the stairs, flanked by guards. You dare bring this infection into my house? Cale didn't blink. This infection has a name, and a heart, and a cure. He turned slightly, letting Lyra step forward. She held up a small vial, glowing faintly. This, she said, is what you've tried to bury. My blood can heal both our kinds. Stop the war, end the lies. Halrose laughed. You think they'll believe you? A mutant and a traitor. Kale stepped closer, voice like fire. Then let them choose. Don't hide behind walls and rules. Show them the truth. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, one soldier lowered their weapon, then another, and another, within seconds. Almost half of the formation broke rank and stepped back. Not to fight, but to listen. Halrose roared, "Cowards!" He pulled a pistol and aimed it at Lyra. Kale moved without thinking. His wings shielded her just as the shot rang out. The bullet hit metal. Kale fell to one knee. Groaning, Lyra screamed, grabbing him, her hands glowing again, not with fear, but with raw, healing energy. She pressed her palms to his wound. Light flared in front of everyone. The hole in his chest began to close. Gasps echoed across the courtyard. Halrose stumbled back. She's not supposed to be able to do that. Kale stood slowly, stronger now. She's not supposed to exist, but she does. He looked around at the crowd, and we're not supposed to fight side by side. But here we are. A new silence filled the courtyard. Not the silence of fear, but the silence before something. Changes. One soldier raised their fist, another followed. Then more, until even the skies felt different. Kale turned to Lyra. We're not finished yet. But we're not alone anymore. She nodded. And that's enough to begin. In the sky, rebel ships hovered above the academy, lights shining down like stars. The war was not over, but something else had ended. The lie. The war didn't end with a battle. It ended with a choice. Across planets. Broadcasts lit up screens, showing footage of the winged human who protected the alien girl with his life. Of the wound that healed in front of soldiers who once called her enemy. Of the moment when truth shattered silence. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy changed. Kale stood on the rooftop of the rebuilt academy. The wind played with his hair as he looked out over the training grounds. Soldiers no longer marched in fear, they trained in peace. Alien and human side by side, not as enemies, as equals. Lyra joined him, her eyes glowing under the rising sun. You never thought this would happen, did you? Kale smiled. I didn't even think I'd live to see another sky. She stepped closer, and their fingers touched. Everything that happened still lived in his mind. The escape, the betrayal, the pain. But now, all that pain had a shape. A reason, and it stood beside him. A week earlier, the council gathered Dalian elders. Human generals, rebel leaders. For the first time in centuries. They sat at the same table. At the center stood Lyra. She held the vial again, this time with steady hands. This is not a weapon, she said, her voice clear. It's hope. But only if we stop fearing each other long enough to use it. The room was tense. Then Kale stood beside her, unarmed, wings open. If you still call me traitor, he said, then let history show that a traitor brought peace. Silence, then applause, then signatures. Now ships that once carried bombs carried medicine. Soldiers who once hunted now protected. Borders once drawn in blood were erased with trust. It wasn't easy, but it was real. Kale sat under a sky tree, watching students train with new uniforms. His name was now in the Academy's history hall, not as a warning, but as a legacy. Lyra sat beside him, sketching in a datapad. She looked up suddenly. You know what's strange? Kale tilted his head. What? My people believe that. When someone saves you, your fate bonds to theirs. Your paths become one. Kale smiled. I think I've believed that from the moment I saw you. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you regret it? Losing everything just to save me. He shook his head. I didn't lose everything, he said. I found everything. That night, stars lit the sky in strange, beautiful patterns. Lights moved from one horizon to another messenger, beacons carrying news to distant colonies. The war was over, but a greater message was now spreading. That love could rise from the ashes. That truth could be stronger than lies. That two people from different worlds could rewrite destiny together. Kale and Lyra stood under the stars, wrapped in quiet. Around them, new stories were already being written. New friendships, new bonds, new beginnings. He turned to her. "So what now?" Lyra looked up at the stars. "We fly," she said softly. "Not to escape, but to explore." Kale grinned, and his wings stretched wide. "Then let's make our own stars." She took his hand, and together the soldier and the girl he once saved leaped into the sky rising, glowing, becoming a story that would never be forgotten.